Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Soccer Coaching Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott.
And I'm your other host, Mark.
In each episode, Mark and I will discuss the key topics that impact on football coaching in the foundation and youth development phases. We will share our thoughts, ideas and experiences, and whenever possible include guests so we can get their insights and opinions too. Thanks for listening and we hope you enjoy this episode. Hello Mark, how you doing?
Very good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, not too bad at all. We found another location to do the podcast.
Yes, on location, watching our sons play football in the car.
Yeah.
And it's raining outside.
It's raining outside, so we look like a couple of weirdos sitting in a car with the car steamed up
Yes.
with microphones.
And I've got a microphone in my hand. I feel like a reporter today. So,
all right.
It's all new experience, so it's good,
new.
right?
And you played last night as well?
And I played 90 minutes last night.
Did you get the whole 90?
Yeah, well...
They had no subs in?
They had no... Well, one sub, 2 people went off injured, so we ended with 10 players.
All right.
I wanted to come off after about 60 minutes, but...
Didn't get their choice?
2 people beat me to it, so I had to stay on the pitch.
Well, left back or...?
Left back.
Yeah. So you kept a clean sheet then, I assume?
Not quite, no. We conceded a few goals, to put it that way. I like to think I was more wing back in the first half and then very left back in the second half, to be honest.
Good man. I'll spare you the scoreline.
Yes, please
but
do.
I'm sure the effort was there.
Oh,
yeah.
I was the hardest working player.
Good man, excellent. All right, so just me and you.
Yes.
Which is quite nice for a change.
Kind of nice.
Yeah.
Kind of nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we've had
At least I turned up this week, right?
Yeah, we're late, but yeah, you're here.
Yeah, late. Yeah.
We've had some cracking guests on, and also we've covered things that are relevant to their specialisms and what they do, which is important.
Yes.
And I think we've all learnt loads and had some great feedback from the episodes. Louis Melville's futsal one, Paul Barry the Arsenal one was gone down really, really well. So we thought we'd be a bit selfish and just do me and you for an episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I must say just one comment. I think what's been nice is the variety of guests we've had on, not just their different, I guess, remits or areas of speciality, but also they all come across different as well, don't they? And I think it's just you can learn a lot from each one as you're going along.
Definitely, and that was part of the idea, wasn't it? To try and get different guests on. I think if you think about also with Phil Beadle and the behaviour one and stuff. So we're trying to do different things, and I know not everything works for everybody, but hopefully some people are getting some stuff out of it.
Yeah, until this one.
Well, I'm going to say now, I think this one could be, parking the guest ones that obviously are special in their own right, this could be our most important one.
Yes.
I honestly do.
Agree, yeah.
Arguably, it could be a little bit negative, but we're going to make it a positive one.
Yep.
But I think it's one of those things where actually, if we can shine a spotlight on these particular key areas, then it could have a massive impact on the experience that the coaches have, the parents get, and players get.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. You obviously think this is a good one because it was your idea.
Well, there's that as well.
But no, I agree, and I think it's worth saying this is going to be one of two, right? So we're going to do this one, and then we're going to do a follow-up one, which I guess would be a little bit more positive, maybe. Yeah,
that's the plan, right? And that's going to be on you to get some ideas around this one. So,
yes.
So a bit of background. So I'm sure people that work in grassroots football can understand some of the not so positive things that occur. Yeah, it happens probably at every single club, even the best intentions clubs. I think you get some of these things. Okay, so by way of example, the kind of things that you might see: over keen coaches, aggressively shouting from the touchlines, joystick coaching, so a lot of instructions from the touchlines.
When to shoot.
Yep, shoot,
when to
pass.
Yep.
Tackle. Coaches maybe limiting players with regards to what they think their capabilities are. So, so you're a defender, you're a front player, you're a wide player, you're a goalkeeper, and that's what you can do. So therefore, lack of rotation.
Yeah.
Possibly not equal playing time, particularly in the foundation phase. An unwillingness to actually learn new things. Maybe poor communication with parents and players. Maybe parents a bit over keen. So all these things that we get at all the clubs, right?
Yeah.
And this isn't about pointing fingers and blaming stuff. It's just about saying, okay, so we've got these symptoms, if you like.
Yep.
What's the root cause? Because if we can understand the root cause, then we can think, can we do anything about it to help? Because ultimately, we've banged on a lot over the 20-odd episodes that we've done about the importance of the environment. And I think we've been quite positive in some of the ideas we've suggested around general stuff. What we've never really done is say, okay, let's look at the things that maybe are barriers to this. Does that make sense so far, do you think?
Yeah. Yep.
And you can list out all the symptoms, and I think these things we've listed now are symptoms, but what's the root cause?
Yeah.
Now, there may be other things that we've missed, but having thought about it over the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I kind of got to the conclusion that I can think of maybe 4 barriers, if you like, to having a development culture.
Yep.
And most of these things that we see that the negative side of foundation phase and grassroots football, I think would come from one of these four things. It may come into more than one of the four, but it comes into at least one of the four things.
Yes. Yeah. Is it worth just clarifying what we mean by a development culture?
In case we disagree.
Yeah, just in case we don't know what we're talking about. So for me, a development culture is you put the boys or girls first. The players are first. You create a culture where they're not afraid to make mistakes. They have fun. They enjoy themselves. They have the opportunity to play lots of different positions. They have lots of time on the ball. All those kind of things that we've spoken about a lot over the last 10 months, 9 months, I guess, and beyond. Just the two of us.
Them, but we spoke about it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you're right, Mark, and that's true. But also, I want to be a bit clear on this because is a danger it can sound a bit fluffy. Right, and it's all about participation and just let the kids have fun.
Yep.
Which there is that. Although the participation thing, I think, is up for debate. That depends on your philosophy as a club. I think it hasn't got to be about participation necessarily. If you want to kind of market yourself to a particular type of player at a particular level, then that's entirely, I think, fair enough to do. If as long as you're spelling it out there and not trying to be something that you're not.
Yep.
But I think with development, what you're saying is actually we'll make decisions that put the developmental interests of our players beyond other stuff. Usually that other stuff first is results, usually. But there's other things as well that get in the way of that. It's not just results. They're saying, actually, we will make decisions that's in the best interest of development of the players that we've got within this club.
Yes.
Fundamentally, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, if that's your starter for 10, well, okay, that's great. So there's things you can do around that. And the positive stuff, we will try and not get too hook up on that today, because that'll be what we'll do in part 2 of this.
Yeah.
But so, okay, if that's what you want to do as a club, and that's your philosophical approach, you're going to make decisions that have development first. What's getting in the way of that? Why do I go to your club then and I see coaches shouting instructions, which isn't development first? Why do I go to the club and I see parents that are saying that my player's a front player and should be up front scoring goals all the time?
Yeah.
Why do I go to clubs and it's actually you don't do things like you don't share ideas, and coaches are spending a lot of time telling players what to do rather than allowing players to explore for themselves?
Yes.
These kind of things.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and I think it's worth adding that a development culture is, I think it's very difficult to embed that at a club across all age groups, all coaches. So you could have age groups from under 5 up to under 18. You could have 2 or 3 teams per age group. That's a lot of coaches, right, that have to buy into your culture. So there's a lot of work that you have to put in to kind of get there as a club. And I think from even our club, when I say even our club, I think our club is nowhere near being there. There's definitely age groups that are very good, and I think there's age groups that have got a lot of kind of work to be done.
Yeah, I totally agree. But you've got to start somewhere.
You do.
I think there's a danger that people say, right, and we've done this a little bit at the club. So, right, we want to offer a better player experience, be more development focused. So let's do all the good things to make that happen.
Yep.
But unless you're brave enough to say, okay, let's look at the barriers too. Because if we can dial down some of the barriers and turn up some of the good stuff, we've got more chance of success. If you just focus on the good stuff, I don't know how quickly you'll get there. Because unfortunately, some of these barriers are pretty big. And to be fair, some of these barriers, and we'll discuss it in a bit, it's about the people just aren't aware.
Yeah.
So it's happening unconsciously.
Yeah.
So until you put a spotlight on it in the most positive way possible, you probably won't get past some of the good stuff into place anyway, because the barriers are going to be too strong to overcome.
Yeah.
You might have 20 odd years of bad practice, or just mindset that needs to be shifted.
Yep.
Just to be perfectly clear, it's not a finger pointing exercise, because I can categorically say that out of the 4 things we're going to cover, I've been guilty at all of them to various degrees in the past and still am.
Yeah.
But actually, by being a bit more aware of them, I've got a bit better at managing them. Not perfect by any stretch, but certainly a bit better.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, agree.
I'm glad you agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, do we spill the beans on the 4 things straight away and then look at them one by one?
I think we should, yeah. I think we should. Let's take one at a time.
One at a time?
Yeah, let's do one at a time. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
That means people listen to the
they will?
podcast to the
Let's
end.
see how far you get. Through. All right. So, do you want to pick one start or?
So I think the first one. Okay, I'll do. Yeah. So I think the first one that we had is education. So I think lack of education, or I think you can think about it another way, is I guess lack of experience as well.
It comes under the same thing. 100%.
Yeah. I think that I must say I do kind of look back at the time when we first started coaching and we were coaching together. I do kind of cringe a little bit, remembering the kind of under 6s and the way we used to have them in queues, and we'd done all sorts of games. We were very nice with them, and do you know what I mean? It was just it wasn't. It didn't. It wasn't the right environment or the right kind of. We didn't do the right kind of training sessions with the boys at the time. But I think education experience is a big one. I do actually think there's no excuse for it nowadays. I think that experience, I get that. You could be a new coach. You can you definitely over the years you can have developed how you can deal with situations, and you can put on different sessions. But I think the basic education, there's so much out there, so many good books out there, there's so much online that there's not much of an excuse nowadays. That's my kind of personal view. I think if you sign up to be a coach of either a boys or a girls team, I think you take that responsibility on, right, and you take it on to deliver a good session and create a good environment for them. A little bit of a rant there, but that's my view, and I think it's a bit education's a big one, which can hold back creating a development culture.
So I totally agree with all of that. I do think actually sometimes there's almost too much stuff to find, and it's knowing what to find. Because if you go back to what we were doing initially, I mean, literally I spent like hours looking through drills and stuff, thinking that was the right thing to do.
Yes.
And you was actually better off not doing that and actually thinking about the environment you're creating and building practices around the players that you've got that are going to be fun and engaging.
Yeah.
But you learn that with time.
Definitely.
So just a little definition, so we're on the same page with this. So lack of knowledge. What I thought this was, is where you don't have the sufficient understanding or experience in a particular subject or fundamental area. And in our case, it will be three things: coaching, children, and football.
Yep.
So that's how I see it. Now, to be fair, what I do think is actually sometimes people go, especially coaches and parents get involved in this, I know football, I can coach. But actually, you might know football because you played it a little bit, but that's different to coaching. You might not know coaching.
Yeah.
And one thing that I see a lot, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I see a lot is people don't know children.
Yeah.
They might know their own kids, but even that's a work in progress, right? As a parent, I can tell you now, it's a learning experience every single day, and I get it wrong more than I get it right.
Yeah.
But, especially other people's kids. So you may know football, but do you really know how coaching works?
Yeah.
Do you know how children work? And you might say, do you know what, I recognise I'm pretty good with the football stuff. Actually, I'm going to work on my coaching. I'll do my coaching badges, or I read some books. But what very few people do is look at the children part.
Yeah.
And I would argue that's the most important part.
Yes.
If anything I've learned over the last 5 years, it's, you know your football, get you better at coaching, but if you want to really work with kids, understand how kids work.
Yeah, definitely.
Child development, what's that all about? Because that'll help you then be able to qualify your decisions, some of the things you decide to do, how you react, how you communicate, your expectations, and all those things.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you almost need to get on their level, right?
It's that empathy, isn't it? Be able to relate. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And even we've said it in the past. Even little things like when they arrive to the training session, giving them high fives, make a big thing, announce that they're a name they're arriving, or a nickname or something like that. It's getting on that. It's getting on that level and understanding. You can build the
rapport, can't you? And it's that thing about players don't care how much you know to know how much you care, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it's that development focus and that child-centered thing that comes through first, and the football and the coaching is almost second to that. You have to get that bit right first. And just another point I was going to make then was, so the lack of knowledge, obviously it can be compounded if you're unaware or unwilling to recognise you have a lack of understanding. I think that's the problem we face sometimes. People don't want to know they haven't got that. When me and you started, I think, to be fair to us, however bad we were, and we were bad, let's be honest about it. I mean, I was bad, but you were shocking. I think I knew it. And when I say I was bad, I wasn't bad. I just knew what we were doing wasn't right. It wasn't the best.
It didn't feel right.
It wasn't actually that bad. The kids were safe. They loved it. I mean,
they enjoyed it.
Everyone came with it. I mean, but there's bad and there's not doing things right.
Yeah,
we weren't bad. We just weren't doing things the best we could have done it.
Definitely.
But I think the important thing for us is, and I think we can take some credit in this, we recognise that and spent the next 5 years trying to get better.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's
still do,
thing.
right?
But the last thing I want to say about lack of knowledge, this is maybe the biggest thing, and this is the bit that I probably personally get more frustrated with, is sometimes this lack of knowledge can run throughout a team or a year group, and coaches, parents and players are all unaware of the problem.
Yeah.
So you kind of see and you think, well, they all think it's fine. Actually, the coach's doing a cracking job. That way he's got those players lined up and behaviour's really, no one's mucking around. All the cones are neat, the players are neat lines. They're doing 1-2s off the coaches and hitting top corners. It's all perfectly run. Freddie's a back player, so he's going to play in defence. I'm okay with that. They don't know themselves, and it's almost like a shared ignorance, which can make it can be an even bigger problem to overcome if you're trying to make changes to more than just yourself and your team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's one of the big signs, right? If you turn up to a coaching session, or if you've sent your son or daughter to a coaching session, and you turn up and it just looks immaculate. Everything, there's loads of cones out. They're doing little passes. No one's missing them. Do you know what I mean? It looks amazing.
Too tidy. It's too organised.
Too
There's
tidy,
no chaos.
exactly.
When does a game ever look that tidy in a match?
Exactly, and I think that's the big sign, right? If you see that.
Well, some of the things I highlighted is, okay, what does this look like then if you were to see this? How do you know if there's a lack of knowledge going on? And see what you think, Mark. You might have other things that you think are more important than this. But I think you see disengaged players.
Yeah.
There's a lack because obviously coaches, or not obviously, but often that means coaches don't know how to kind of put on an environment or a session that's going to really engage them.
Yeah.
This is exclusive. This is. I'm not saying this is guaranteed every single time, but you see poor relationships. Now that could be with the players, with the other coaches, with the parents. Quite maybe not always there.
Yeah.
You see often dated training practices, so quite a dated way of approaching training.
Yeah.
Dated match day actions, poor development focus. It's often looking more on short term results. Communication is obviously an issue. It can often be more coach centered.
Yeah.
And I think you see one of the signs that we see is lots of external recruitment. You want to fix the problem by going outside of what you've got rather than focusing on what you've got and trying to improve it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you look at us and we can be too soft. You get the level wrong of how you pitch in your training sessions. You know, you're not preparing the players for what the real game looks like. So what you do doesn't transfer.
Yeah.
And it's back to the point you were making really about doing the stuff that's most relevant to matches and development rather than doing the things that you think it should look like. That's what we like. For me, I think if you see someone that hasn't got a real understanding of the coaching and engaging the children.
I think the interesting thing is what you kind of spoke about, the coaching the children, the football. You could have one of those, and you could have the children bit right, and perhaps you haven't got the coaching bit right, and maybe your knowledge of football's not quite there. But if you've got the children bit right, actually they may still have fun, right? They still may enjoy it. It may not be the most developmental kind of cultural environment for them, but they could still be enjoying it. So it's an interesting. I think you need all three to kind of get that right development culture. But you could have one.
But if you were to rank them in priority, what would you say was 1, 2, and 3? 1 being most, second, and then third.
I think for me, the children piece is critical. I think even if you're a great coach and you know a lot about football, if you don't engage with the kids, then I think it's a struggle. Uphill struggle, to be honest.
And second.
I would go coaching.
And football third.
Totally
agree. Mark, as an example, I wasn't thinking about this until you just mentioned it, but last night we had the indoor training session, and for the first half of the session, we played on crash mats and dodgeball. There was no football involved in it.
Yeah.
I mean, the boys never complained in it, man. They loved it. They didn't like, but that's my point. It's like, I've learned, actually, you know what? So that's all about the child.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was there. I set the games up and they kind of just played it. So it wasn't completely their practice. They're still young, but they gave much ownership as I could for the thing. But they played a couple of games. No one mentioned football. They just wanted to play the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what I would never have done that 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think the other thing on this, just one final point, is I think the coach would be very much win at all costs. That's what he would think that the players would want. That's what he would think the parents would want and the club would want. So he or she, I should say, would be very, very focused on winning at all costs.
Often
Probably
comes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Play the strongest players, no rotation, all the usual kind of things. I think that's what you would find.
Yeah. So what we'll do at the end is we'll go through the 4 and then we'll come to a couple of ideas about how we might adjust some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But the point is, if we recognise a lack of knowledge is a problem in getting a development culture, then that's fine. Then we think about that and we deal with it. Yep. And then you'll think about the people that actually recognise that and we can support in different ways, or those that don't recognise it and might have a different approach to those. But I think lack of knowledge has got to be one of the 4 main ones.
Definitely.
All right. What should we go for second?
You choose.
All right. I'm going to go then with ego.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Good one. Yep.
Yeah. Just looked at you and I thought ego.
Yeah. That's a good one. What's your definition of ego?
Mark Edwards.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
Not at all.
Set you up there, right?
Yeah. Well, I've got a picture of Di Mourinho on my little notes here. But so it's your sense of self-esteem or self-importance, okay?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with ego, but it's about how it's managed. So these are some of the ways in which it could be a negative thing. You believe you should get your own way over anything or anyone else.
Yep.
I see that quite a lot in some coaches. Keeps you out of touch with reality. So your ego gets in the way of kind of seeing things for what they are. It can create unrealistic expectations and entitlement.
Yep.
It can make you dependent on external validation. So you kind of get hung up on other people are thinking. You can think you know or have all the answers.
Yep.
Which can be a big mistake. And you're more worried about what other people think than doing what's best.
Yes.
That's how ego can get in the way sometimes. That's not to say that having pride and having an ego, we've all got an ego, that's not a bad thing. It's just about not letting it become something that gets in the way of what we're trying to do with regards to the best experience for the players and development.
Yeah, yeah.
So some of the ways I think this could show itself up would be things like there'd be a poor listener, might have limited interest in learning new stuff, probably got quite a fixed mindset.
Yep.
Often.
Yep.
Focused again on results and trophies. It puts limitations on players. So straight away see a player for what they can't do rather than what they can do or what they might be able to do. None or limited rotation. Why would you rotate players when you're playing in a stronger position? That's what you're going to do. Limited club consideration. So they won't think about the bigger picture and stuff. It'll be about, just what their own interests.
Yeah.
Sees the club as a resource. So it's what the club can do for them.
Yep.
And often believes the club owes them a favour. They're doing a favour for the club kind of thing. So it's not, it's not their contribution to helping the kids. It's that way around. But these are some of the things I think that you could see.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's other things that I've put down here. I think probably maybe have an old-fashioned approach as well. Outdated attitudes. I think very much I agree with the fixed mindset piece. It's all about the coach.
Yep.
I think they're full of their own kind of self-importance rather than it being about the players. Again, I've got win at all costs, no rotation, perhaps a fixed goalkeeper, even kind of a very young age. They might put maybe either the biggest boy or girl in goal, or perhaps maybe the least technical boy or girl in goal, and leave them there for the whole game unless they're winning kind of 10-0, and they might get to come out for the last 5 minutes if they're lucky. So I think I totally agree. You see this a lot. There's no doubt about it. You see it a lot. We played teams this season where we've seen it. I think the other thing is, I think also maybe I kind of look at myself a little bit. Sometimes I don't feel like I've got a big ego at all, and I always feel like I put the players first. But I remember even last season, my kind of assistant manager would be suggesting something, and I wouldn't really be taking it fully on board. And
because you think you know better.
Because I think I know. I think I knew better, know better, and actually, it kind of turned out that what they'd said made sense, and we kind of changed it around, and we did what they were suggesting. So I think sometimes it's not just about having a big ego. It's sometimes that you might put players first, but actually you're not open to other ideas from other coaches. I think that's the other thing, because you think you know best.
Mark, it's a good point. And this is my point I said at the beginning about not being a blame thing. We've all got this. This isn't like, actually, you're either good with the ego or you're bad. It's not black and white. Yeah. It's about, actually, there's moments when it gets out of control. And I think that's probably the same for all of us.
Yeah.
And it's maybe a reflection when you realise that. I think some of these problems are a bigger problem when the person who's got the issue is unaware of it, or not trying to manage it better, So I think ego can be a big issue, especially in grassroots football, with coaches and parents and players who aren't aware of the kind of self-ego state, and therefore it's not being managed properly. And it can run away with things. And it's also important to say these things will overlap. So let's say like your ego could come from a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
So or that it may impact on your lack of knowledge because you're not prepared to go and learn something because you think you know it all.
Exactly.
So one thing affects another. Where actually if we could dial down a bit on the ego to say, actually, do you know what? Maybe I need to, like you did with the assistant coach thing. Actually, you know what? On reflection, I probably should have listened.
Yeah.
And I pretty much guarantee the next time you had a conversation with the assistant coach, you would have taken on board a bit more, or at least shown willing to listen and maybe put some of those things into practice because you've reflected and learnt from that.
Yeah, definitely. It was about the 5th time he suggested something, to be honest with you. But
it's probably about 150.
Exactly.
But
no, I definitely did. I think the other thing, just coming back to what you kind of mentioned earlier around the 3 points, I think we had coaching, children and football. I think, again, this kind of person with this kind of big ego doesn't get on the same level as the players, as the children, right? And I think that is I think that's a really big issue.
Yeah.
They're going to treat the children as adults, as adult players, right?
I think you can see it when, if you in communications with the coaches where maybe it's more about them, they'll use the word I a lot.
Yes.
One of the phrases I really can't stand is when you hear a coach say, "Go and do it for me. Go and grab a goal for me." They're trying to say the right thing. They don't know it. They don't. It's not a deliberately, kind of malicious or underhanding comment. They think they're saying the right thing. But you go. Go and get a goal for me. Go and show how hard you can play. It's not about you, It's about your team. But those almost subliminal or subconscious messages that go out to the players, it makes it about the coach.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's hard. And if you are that way wired, it is hard to kind of undo that and dial it down. But you'd have a much better experience with your players and better outcomes at the end if you could get control of that.
Yeah. And again, I think the other thing is a lot of coaches would say, "I would like you to do this," or
"Yes,
can you do this for me?" kind of thing.
Yeah.
That same kind of language, right?
not about doing it for yourself. Challenge yourself. What do you want to do now? What do you want to get? How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And it is, the words are so important, and the actions, the body language, throwing your arms up when things go wrong. It's not about you, it's about the players.
Yeah.
Now, if a player just scored an own goal or made a mistake for a goal, I can tell you, I promise you they'll feel worse than you will as the coach.
Yeah.
And you don't, what they need is probably encouragement, a bit of advice and guidance on how to maybe not do things next time that way, or not even that. They probably just need a moment to think about it and maybe a sensible question or two. But you make it about you, and it's a dangerous thing to do. And I say this knowing that actually I think most coaches that maybe fit into this category a little bit, they'd have a much more enjoyable experience if they could just realise that and try and get a bit of control of it and dial it down.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just on your point there about own goals,
you scored an goal last night.
I didn't score an goal last night, actually, no. So I think with own goals and defensive errors, I think that's the other thing, and it's a little bit off the subject, but coaches focus on those things, right? You might have little Jimmy who's playing the first half up front, and he's missed 5 or 6 chances, but he's got in great positions, or he's worked an opening to have the shot, but he's missed it. There's never any kind of negative feedback where there shouldn't be, but there never is.
Yeah.
But as soon as someone makes an error at the back, maybe they made a great tackle and it's gone in for an own goal, or the goalkeeper's going to let the ball under their foot or through their hands. It's always negative feedback straight away, right?
That's a good point, Mark. Do you think there's a correlation between some of this stuff, maybe particularly the ego one, to be fair, and having a more defensive mindset in your approach to football? Thinking about what you said then, the coaches that I think, and even look at myself, I think when I had more stuff not quite in control, was I more defensive minded? Was I focused on the defensive and negative parts of the game rather than actually more forward thinking?
Yeah, I don't. Do you know what? I think some of it comes down. If you've played football in the past, I think some of it comes down to how you were coached when you were younger, and also the position that you played. So I was a kind of defender, and my kind of first and foremost, I always think that I want a nice kind of tight defence. I don't know
That's
why
how
that's.
Coached them. It was always really defend first, wasn't it? It wasn't they'll score 3, we'll score 4 kind of thing. It wasn't the Kevin Keegan Newcastle teams back then. It was about. It wasn't, was it? It was more old school. Try and grab a goal if you can, but let's keep the back door closed first.
Would it be interesting to see the kids nowadays, right? It's a little bit more freer and things like that. How they are in kind of 20, 30 years time. Once they're going to get into their coaching, whether they are very much more forward thinking.
Because it's all about creativity and ball skills and ball players, especially at the elite, at the higher level stuff. I mean, I know we get it wrong still in the grassroots game a lot, but I think in the academies, to be fair to them, whatever you think of the environments and what they do, I think they are trying to develop, individual flair players, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you think that probably would change, and you do even in football now. You see, I mean, even at City conceding goals, I don't think it's not. They don't want it. Clean sheets are still, I'm sure, sought after.
Yes.
I still think entertainment's a big thing in it, and scoring goals, and it's what you do in the attacking third. That's
definitely. It's not like the old days of George Graham at Arsenal. 1-0.
I'll take those days right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. Yeah.
All right, so that's two of the 4.
Yeah, we better move on for 2 reasons. One, your car battery's going to die, and secondly, it's getting dark out.
Okay, so the third one, Mark, it's okay. I want to leave one to last. So can we do reverse dependency as the next one?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now this is a bit of a weird one. I understand. So we've done lack of knowledge and ego. Now, to me, I think this is huge. It may well be one that affects us as parents a bit more than as coaches, but I don't think that's exclusive. But I would imagine that most coaches out there that listen are also parents and probably coaching their own kids as well as coaching someone else.
Yep.
So reverse dependency. I'm not sure this is the official term or not, but I like the phrase, and I picked it up from something that I saw online. But the definition would be something like this. So it's where adults over-identify with the child's experience and define their own self-worth based on the successes of the child or children.
Yep.
So it's kind of that living vicariously through your kids kind of thing.
Yep.
If my boy goes out and has a great game on Sunday and smashes 3 goals, and I go home buzzing.
Yeah.
If he goes home and he's doing poor, he's giving the ball away, or it's gone wrong, it ruins my weekend.
Yes.
Now, I'll be honest with you. I think if we're honest about this, most of us are pretty much like that. But what we have to learn to do is get it under some control.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, totally agree.
If you can have Premier League players that can have good and bad weeks, then I'm sure my 7-year-old and my 10-year-old kids are allowed to have good or bad months. It doesn't make a difference. But this reverse dependency, it's the activity may actually become more important to you than the child.
Yeah.
That's another thing there. So actually, your kid's not that bothered. They want to go and play football and have a thing, but actually, they won't sweat about the game afterwards.
Yeah.
They'll go and play it because they want to play it, but you'll be thinking about the chance they missed or the tackle they didn't make or something. It's crazy. You can have excessive interest rather than promoting your child's participation.
Yep.
And that undermines their interest by taking away their ownership of the sport.
Yep.
Your children may develop the perception that the sport is no longer theirs. The focus is on you, your emotions, what the experience means to you, and what you gain from it rather than them.
Yep.
And when your children have good competitions, you feel that you have succeeded. When your children have bad competitions, you feel that you have failed.
Yeah.
So these are kind of that reverse dependency things, and it's a massive thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And it can impact on coaches through parents, can't it?
Yeah.
Because if you've got a parent that's a bit over keen, then that can impact on you too.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think even I just think with myself, even sometimes, and I'm a lot better than I used to be. And I don't think it was ever that bad, but even now, I kind of sometimes I feel myself feeling a little disappointed. Like if one of my sons doesn't play to the kind of level I know they can play at. But then I'm able to control it and bring myself back in straight away. And I ask them, just focus on, did you work hard today? Did you have fun? What do you think you've done well? What can you do better? That kind of thing. So I'd kind of I rein it back in.
That's some experience, right, and learning.
Yeah.
So you kind of learn over time, and you're probably better than you were at that than you were maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's hard actually because for me, it's not about I want to live my life through them, or I want if they play well, then it makes me feel good. For me, I just want them to be the best that they can be. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's why perhaps I have those feelings, without getting too deep on the matter. I think that's why I have those kind of feelings. I want them to be the best that they can possibly be. And I think you've said it in the past, not everyone can be the best, but you can be the best that you can be today.
That's your challenge, isn't it?
That's your challenge, yeah. And sometimes I think I'm more disappointed actually if my sons don't work hard. Yeah. I think if they work hard and things don't work out, or they're playing against better players, then it's fine. I think I can live with that. But it's if they're not working hard, that's what I find hard to deal with.
Definitely, but even then, and I think that's a more balanced approach to this. And it's like all the others. It's not an on-off thing. It's going to be there. It's about the dial and maybe dialing down from an 8 or 9 to like a 2 or a 3.
Yeah.
So it doesn't become a problem to you and your child, or you and the team you're coaching.
Yeah. I think the thing for me, when I was kind of thinking about this actually, I think the 4 things that I've kind of got here, I think 1, it drives bad behaviour in parents and puts pressure on the child. I think that's a big one for me. I think the parent starts to give the child bad advice, and that advice could be against the coach's guidance. I think they take the focus off of kind of things like working hard, having fun, doing your best, to scoring goals. Can you create goals? That kind of thing. And I think it then starts to incentivise the wrong behaviour. And we've all seen it, right? Little Johnny scores 3 goals, gets a hat-trick, he gets £10 from his parents, right? Or he doesn't score this week, he doesn't get any money, and he's desperate to score, and you can see it on the pitch. And the dad's on the touchline, you can hear him, he's desperate for him to score. So I think it just drives the wrong behaviour, and certainly all this incentivising the wrong behaviours, I think is a big issue in grassroots football.
Totally agree. I had a list of stuff that, to show kind of what it looks like in practice, and you've covered all of them off. So shouting instructions from the touchline is a big one. Yeah. Rewards for outcomes. Yeah. So, how you score 4 goals, I'll give you the match tax, whatever else, or pounds. Yeah. Rather than actually, rewards for working hard. But even then, I think that it should come from, you want intrinsic motivation, not extrinsic motivation. You want the players to want to go and work hard. If they're enjoying what they do, they're going to work hard. If they're not going to work hard, then they might be in the wrong sport. Yeah. Or they're having a bad day. Let's be realistic. If they're just young, Yeah. But it shouldn't have to come from a reward to want to go and do well and play football. I mean, the idea. I can't believe how much this went on when we had the younger group, or the older group now, but when they were younger, rewarding for goal scoring. Yeah. And we all did it. Honestly, I did it with my kid. I'm going to say I wasn't the first. I think I was the last, and we cut it up pretty quickly. But why are we giving the kids money to score goals? The one thing that all kids want to do is score goals. Yeah, exactly. No one's not trying to score a goal. Yeah. Why don't we work? Why don't we do the working hard and putting the effort in? And can they more about can they create things, or can they win tackles and do their stuff? Everyone wants to score the goals.
Yeah.
So it seemed weird, and I think so. They also have disproportionate highs and lows. So you get too carried away with the good games and too down with the bad games.
That's a good one, really good one. Yeah.
And we do that as coaches and as parents.
Yeah.
The adult focuses on the outcome rather than development, and this is the one I think as well, which I think comes up through reverse dependency: expressing opinions to others.
Yeah.
So you kind of think, because you're kind of over involved in your kid's situation, you start talking to other parents about stuff, and or if you get on a coach's case a little bit about things, then that happens, doesn't it? And that can quite easily become the bad apple in the group, can't it? When they've got that, because the parent doesn't realise this, they're not doing it deliberately, they just care about their kid, and I've got no issue with that. They just don't know how best to manage that. And they've made it so now it becomes more about them, it does about their kid, and then it has all those negative impacts with regards to criticising the coaches, moaning to other parents, and then the whole experience just becomes a lot more negative.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. I think we've all been there with parents, right, and have had to deal with it
because they have the lack of knowledge as well, with all respect in some cases.
They do.
Not always, but sometimes they do, and it's like they don't understand things. And again, as coaches, if you've got an egotistical coach and you've got a parent with a lack of knowledge of high reverse dependency, there's a recipe for disaster there, isn't there? And I reckon that's a quite common set of circumstances
for sure.
in lots of teams.
Yeah. Well, I think the coach,
or not uncommon, I should say. Maybe it's not very common. It's not uncommon, is it, to have that?
Yes, I totally agree. I think the coach, you learned behaviour becomes an issue, right?
Yeah.
With big egos and a little bit of reverse dependency, but certainly with your ego, and I think with and we're going to come on to the last one, but it comes into play there as well. Yeah, I just think, like, if you're going to incentivise your son or daughter to play football, which you shouldn't really need to do, but if you are, do it for things that, and A, are not going to go against the coach's wishes, and B, something that they can own and make a difference. So things like hard work.
The process rather than the outcomes, not how many tackles, how many goals, but it's hard to qualify that, isn't it? That's why people don't do it so much. You can get a goal's a goal, right? But actually, how hard you worked on the pitch, it's a harder metric, isn't it? But
I agree.
But you shouldn't need to. And I've never seen any extrinsic motivation that's benefited a player over the longer term. In fact, I've seen lots that have been detrimental over the longer term.
Yeah.
It may have a little gain in that short term, but it takes something away from the longer term motivation.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, so fourth one then, the final one. I think we say this one's last for a good reason.
Yeah.
So we've done, what was it? Lack of knowledge.
Yep.
Ego.
Yep.
Reverse dependency, and the fourth and final one from us would be frustration.
Yes.
Now, obviously, a coach that's aware of their lack of knowledge, or a parent that's aware of their too much reverse dependency, or or if you've got a high ego, you're going to be frustrated through those as well. But frustration can sit in its own place.
Yeah.
You can be a perfectly happy egotistical coach and not realise. You
Yeah.
can be perfectly blissfully ignorant to the fact you don't know what you're talking about and not be a problem. And you can have reverse dependency issues and not be aware of them one little bit, so
Yeah.
you wouldn't be frustrated. So frustration kind of sits in its own space, I think. And I've saved it for last because I'm going to say, out of all four of these, this is definitely by far and away my biggest flaw and something I'm working on. It is. And again, it's about a dial, and it's like, well, actually, by shining a spotlight on it myself, I'm trying to do more to manage it.
Yeah.
I've got a long way to go, but I'm trying. But until you kind of make yourself aware of the problem, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So awareness comes first. So just by way of definition, frustration is an emotion that occurs in situations where a person feels the prevention of the progress, success, or fulfillment of an outcome has occurred.
Yeah.
Which I think is really good.
Yep.
Typically, the greater the perceived importance of the outcome, the greater the potential frustration. These frustrations can be internal or external. So things I'm frustrated with myself about stuff, or can't get the goals up because something's broken or whatever else. So it could be an external thing. Some typical results of frustration include anger, quitting and giving up, loss of self-esteem and self-confidence, and two serious ones, stress and depression. I mean, it can get quite heavy. And there's a correlation again between coaching and depression. It's funny. And not that coaching, I think, causes depression, but a lot of people get into coaching to help others because they've had a bad experience themselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to be aware of that. And finally, because I think this is a good one, to help manage frustration, it's important to learn to distinguish between what you hope will happen, what will probably happen, and what will actually happen. And I love this because this is me here. The reality is, when I get frustrated, I've got it wrong. What I hoped was going to happen was never likely going to happen anyway. It wasn't even probable. And what actually happened, I should be aware of. And it comes with experience, so you kind of get better at that stuff. But I still kid myself too many times that what I hope will happen is going to happen, and it doesn't. And I get frustrated, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's a good one. It is a very good one. And some of the things that I've kind of started to think about is, I think with frustrated coaches, their outbursts, they have a lot of outbursts, which can negatively impact the boys and girls that play for them. Could put extra pressure on them, could make them upset, all sorts, depending on their character. Obviously, there's a kind of a little bit of lack of control. It could also be driven, perhaps, maybe there, and maybe linked to a bit of reverse dependency. Maybe their son or daughter's not playing well, and as a result, they get frustrated, and then they take it out on the rest of the players in the team.
So you've got two issues there. You've got two dial downs that have been cranked up. So you've got the one about reverse dependency, and then that knocks on a coach has got poor frustration management skills. Yeah. So that what happens then? That's when you get the bigger problems, right? Then you get the volcanoes.
Yeah, and I think also the ego one. I think it's linked a little bit to ego as well. Sometimes, perhaps you have a coach that is full of their own self-importance. For them, it's all about winning, and when things are not going the way they think it should do, they get very kind of frustrated, or they're not winning. And I think that them two you've got a bit of a link there as well. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point, Mark, because I think all these can stand on their own. So you could be pretty good at 3 out of the 4 and have a high one of those 4 options. What is probably more common and potentially a bigger problem is when you've got maybe 2, 3, or 4 of these things all dialed up a little bit too high. So if you've got a bit of an ego and you've got a bit of reverse dependency, and you get frustrated quite quickly, and you've got a bit of a knowledge gap somewhere that you're not aware of, that's when you get your problem situations, right? And that can be as a coach, as a parent, or as a player.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the worst thing is it impacts your team, or that coach's team, and that's their team. That's bad enough, but it then starts to impact the team that they're playing as well, and the coaches that are involved with that other team. And we've seen it, right? And
100%.
And sometimes, like, there's been things going on, and the boys in our team are kind of looking at the opposition coach because they're shouting so much, or they are doing something, behaving the way they shouldn't be, and it kind of starts influencing your players. And I think that's the point where you kind of got to draw a line in the sand and say, right,
it's too much now.
It's too much now. Yeah, exactly.
You covered the things I had written down really about what it looks like in practice, and I had negative shouting. I think you see that with frustration, so you kind of shout the wrong stuff. I think shouting is not such a bad thing if you shout the right stuff, but certainly negative shouting. A lot of player criticism.
Yeah,
it might not be direct, it can often be direct, but it might just be kind of suggested.
Yeah,
negative body language.
Yeah.
Arguing.
Just on the body language quickly, that's the old classic goal goes in, they got their hands on their head, it's like, oh no,
exactly. And you see, and that transcends the whole team, doesn't it?
It does,
like, come on boys, let's go again, don't worry, we'll learn from that, we'll move on. Arguing, and I mean, worst case scenario here, you see 2 coaches who get frustrated on the touchline and it can kick off, can't it? And it happens way too much. It's ridiculous, but it does happen. Poor communication. So again, it comes down to too frustrated. So you can't, I'm guilty of this. As soon as I get frustrated, my communication goes through the floor. I don't say what I want to say in the right way. It all comes out wrong. It just kind of, I lose that moment. The fight or flight monster takes over, and you start just talking nonsense, which they again can give you poor relationships if you don't, if you can't dig yourself out of those holes you've created, and you have poor relationships with players, parents, other coaches. And you make bad decisions when you're frustrated. You just make impulsive bad decisions.
I agree.
Is it worth waiting for those 4 things?
Yeah. Well, do you know what?
Disappointed the listeners.
I think the big thing for me on frustration, just to wrap up on that one, is also learned behaviour. I think the players start to react or start to behave like the coach, and I think that's the worst. That's the worst thing for me.
Well, all of them, isn't it? Let's be honest. I think you're dead right. Often teams mirror their coaches, don't they?
Yeah.
What you sow is what you reap, right?
Exactly.
So if you create that environment, and if you've got these things going on, you can almost guarantee that will be kind of the environment your training session takes place in, and the tone of your message to your parents, and the way you speak to the players, and then your match day approach and stuff. So all these that's a powerful recipe to what you're going to get out the other end. So just to draw us to a conclusion, then we don't want to just dump these 4 kind of grenades on people and say good luck with that, off you go. The question is, what do you do about it? So if we're going to say, okay, we kind of, until we hear otherwise, me and you think that lack of knowledge, ego, reverse dependency, and frustration are 4 things that we should try to dial down as much as possible to allow for hopefully a more pleasant and developmental kind of experience and environment for the players.
Yeah.
How do we go about that? And this is the tricky part, isn't it? Well, what things can we do to try and either ourselves or in the clubs we work in to try and reduce some of that stuff before we start putting some of the good practice we're going to cover in part 2?
Is that a question for me?
Well, I've got two ideas, but I'm just conscious. I've got I can only think of two. I was ridiculous. I didn't give as much time to think about the solutions I did to the problems, but I've got a couple
Go
of
on.
things.
You go first.
The first thing I think, and I don't know what other clubs do, but I think it's recruitment. There's this phrase, and I love it, and I think it's a fair phrase. I think we're all volunteers in the grassroots space, so we're working for a community grassroots football club, just giving up our time for free, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But we're doing it because we want to do it. And I don't think being a volunteer is an excuse for poor performance,
No,
especially when working with kids.
Yep.
So I think we have an obligation to recruit right and actually sometimes say no to coaches, or at least make them aware of our expectations in this particular club that you're at, and talk about the things that are problems. Say, look, to be honest with you, we're trying to avoid coaches who aren't aware of their ego or don't recognise there might be a lack of knowledge, and say it. Now, the coaches may still not be aware, but at least you put a light on it straight away, and that way when you have to talk about it or have to bring it up at some point in the future, if you do have to, it doesn't come as a shock to them. You kind of put your stall out nice and early.
Yeah.
And if you've got some alarm bells and some red flags, then find somebody else.
Yeah.
You're much better off finding a coach that understands children and wants to learn than you are finding a coach that's great with their football knowledge but doesn't get kids to and doesn't want to learn.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And I think it's not just about the recruitment on day one. I think it's then having a process within the club to kind of keep that communication channel open with the coaches, almost like a mentoring type program. And I know there's the FA mentoring out there, and some clubs got internal mentoring and things like that. It's having that ongoing process, right, to manage if situations come up.
So you keep the spotlight on it, and you can keep
it's
control
like
of it a little bit.
Support network for the coaches. And I think a good thing, like even for our club have done recently, they gave the Ray Power book out to all the new under-6 coaches. I don't know if that was your idea or it was the chairman's idea. You can take it.
I'm going to take it. I think
it's a good idea.
It might have been Ben's, actually, to be fair. But what we're trying to do in our little club is really work with the newer coaches to get good practice nice and early.
Yeah.
I don't think coaches deliberately go out there to get things wrong and to mess things up.
No.
I don't believe one coach out there saying, I want to create a bad experience for my players. I don't want to create a negative environment. Yeah. I don't think that for 1 second. I just think that sometimes it's just awareness.
Yeah.
And if you can be aware of those 4 big things, and you can then focus on how can you work on those, better for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And as a club, if you've got coaches that aren't aware, then it's your job to kind of say, look, in a positive, constructive way, these are some of the symptoms we've seen: the joystick coaching, the bad communication, the body language. So where's that coming from? And let's talk about that. And let's see if we can dial that down, because if we can, you're gonna find this is a much more enjoyable environment and much better outcomes in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good one.
So the second one was, and it kind of, so you got recruitment, and I agree with you, have the mentorship thing to go with it. Then it's education for me, and it's those 2 things: recruit and educate.
Yeah.
Now, education is something that's experience. So just going through the process a little bit with some support. It is about doing the courses, reading the books. It's finding the resources that are going to plug the gaps that will help you kind of be better at what you do. But again, until you're aware of where your shortfalls might be, it's really hard to plug those gaps, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think as a club, you've got to do certain things to help your coaches in terms of the education process. But coaches have also got to stand up, and they've got to go out there and want to learn. They've got to want to go out there and speak to other coaches, maybe even get a coach down to kind of review their session or look at their session, give them some feedback, video their session, so they really get that kind of stuff. And maybe as a club, you could have someone, a volunteer that goes around each age group and videos the session for that coach, and then puts it onto a DVD. Is DVD still around? Or are they gone now?
I think that was 20 years ago.
Or a memory card or something, and give it to them and say,
in the cloud.
Is that in the cloud? That's it. Yeah. That kind of thing, right? I think I think the club can do things, but the classic phrase is you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The coach needs to come on board and want to learn, and I think, to me, there's not enough coaches out there that want to do that.
And that comes back to recruitment, if you can. So you can tell an open-minded coach, or at least, but even if you just say to the coaches what your expectations are, and if they nod in agreement and want to change their mind later, well, you're in a much stronger position to challenge back, because you've kind of got it from the outset.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more powerful than the video. But if you can't video, it's so easy just to put your phone in your pocket, put the voice notes on and press record.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and if you want to put a little mic on your thing, it's built into the headphones anyway. Put it on there, and you've got a mic, and no one's even got to know you're doing it.
Yeah.
And you listen to your session back and how you talk and stuff like that. I think you'll be blown away by that alone.
Yeah.
If you listen to if you watch a video as well, then you're getting even more out of that, right? And it's hard to watch yourself back because there's so much in there that you can do better, and you're like, but what a great way to learn, and what a brilliant piece of self-reflection.
Totally agree.
That hasn't necessarily got to involve anybody if you don't want it to.
Yeah, totally agree. One other thing that I was just thinking as we were going through actually is I think the two things you mentioned there were kind of spot on, covers everything. I think one thing that coaches can think about is match day and how they deal with the match day situation. And I'm not talking about how they manage their own team in terms of rotation and equal game time. Obviously, that's something that we kind of massively believe in. I think it's how you manage the opposition as well. So if you have a coach, the opposition coach is very all about their ego, gets frustrated, all those kind of things, shouts a lot. How can you manage that as a coach, or as an opposition coach? And I think there's things that we do quite well. I think, and I'm going to talk about this, I think it's more home games than away games. Away games, you're a little bit in the kind of in the hands of the opposition. Less control, yeah. But I think as home, you've got control, right? And I know there's something you've implemented that I think there's a leaflet kind of thing.
Sheet we send out
beforehand,
that goes, expectations,
that gives expectations of the game, and that's the kind of ground rules, right? The starting point for opposition coaches. They know that this is what you come to Ickenham Youth. This is what you've got to kind of follow. And then I think, as coaches, we're very kind of open with the coaches, the opposition coach. I think that if I'm refereeing, then I'm clear around my expectations of that coach. I do not expect them to be shouting at me. If the parents are shouting at me, I expect you to deal with the coaches, with the parents, that kind of thing. So I think there's things that coaches can do to be proactive on match day that kind of helps the environment, or helps the kind of situation, if that makes sense. And I know it's a little bit off subject. It's not kind of.
No, it's a valid point.
It's linked.
It is linked. I think it's almost the next phase, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then what you're trying to get out of, if you control some of these things, and what you're trying to get out of, and what you want to look like after that. And I mean, I like the approach we've got, obviously, because we're taking that approach, and I think we manage our home games really well. It helps when you ref the games 100%, because we just know there's no issues around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll give us penalties all the time.
No penalties, but that's okay. But you know, I'd rather have no penalties and everyone be happy.
Definitely.
Honestly, you know that's why we do the things we do. And
of course.
You're fair and stuff. But what I would say is about match day is more the fact I think it amplifies things.
Yes.
So I might be a lovely, wonderful coach on a training session, great ego, manage my frustrations, no reverse dependency, all the kids treated equally, and I've got good knowledge of what I'm doing. But you put me in a match day environment, you know, against the local rivals, and you know it's 2-2 and 10 seconds to go. You know, you may see a different me. I don't think you do. I think you would have done a couple of years ago. I think I've got a lot better. Actually, you do see a different me. I'm just not as bad as I used to be.
Yeah.
I still, it all shifts up. My dials go up a little bit. It dials up a little bit more than it should do. You know, or a little bit more than it does at training. And why should it be any different? Yeah. It does, things mean a little bit more to me, you know, and you kind of, and it shouldn't do. And I think I'm pretty good, but I've still got a fair way to go in just controlling my dials enough.
Yeah.
But what is helping me is kind of recognising what the dials are, or at least what I think some of these dials are.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that make some sense?
Yes, I think so.
It'd be interesting to know if people think we're well off the pace with this.
Yes.
We've got something completely wrong here. We're missing out something that's, you know, that's even bigger than what we said, or should sit along with it. Maybe there's 5 or 6. We didn't want to have like 20.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about focusing on this, on the actual symptoms, which is about what's the actual root cause of these things.
Yes.
Like, and if you can imagine a coach had a great ego, no reverse dependency, managed frustrations really well, and had great knowledge about the coaching children and football, I don't know he'd have any problems after that. I don't know where else would be the hole to fill after that.
Yeah.
But maybe we've missed something.
Yes. Well, it'd be interesting if people have got any feedback or views.
Yeah.
Let us know. Right. As always, we're very open to hear them.
Yeah, and it's not a blame game. It's not about going, oh, I can picture. Because when you say this thing, you start seeing people, you think, oh, they're a bit like that, aren't they? But I don't think any coach is deliberately out there trying to ruin a young player's enjoyment of playing football.
No, agree.
This is trying to be a tool for helping rather than for blaming and pointing fingers.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Yeah, I think it's good.
All right.
I think we should probably leave it there.
You're in charge of part 2 then, so you've got to find some positives.
Yes, will do.
Yeah,
will do.
is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can no longer see my notes because it's pitch black. So.
It's gone dark, isn't it? And the kids are going to finish. Well, look, thanks everyone for listening. Please, if you can, follow us on Twitter, and that's @SoccerCoachCast. Please, if you can, leave a review on whatever podcast host you're listening to us through. That would be brilliant. Be an honest review with an honest number of stars. We're not asking for 5 stars or positive feedback. Just the feedback. Just be constructive, please. And if you can, please share this out to other people that might be interested in listening to us. We keep hearing people saying, "Oh, we just found you," which is great. But it'd be great if we could hear people saying, "Oh, we recommended you to listen to it." That would be brilliant as well. Yeah. And just feedback on the episode, generally speaking, any thoughts, ideas. We've had some more cracking emails from a few different people about the stuff they're doing in their clubs, and it's great to hear that. And we'll pick those up at certain episodes as we come back.
Yep.
But hopefully you're enjoying the episodes and you're getting something out of it. But whatever, please let us know. Yes. Sound good?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, nice one, Mark.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Yeah, you too.
Bye, everyone.